Hey, this is Craig Garber from kingofcopy.com. I'm the author of the best-selling book, How to Make Maximum Money with Minimum Customers. And today we're going to answer a couple of questions sent in from Ask Me Baby. If you want to send any questions, go to kingofcopy.com/Ask Me Baby. Sorry if I'm a little disheveled. I've got a cat here. Someone's walking over there. And anyway, and I'm sure in a few minutes my dogs will start barking because they always time it perfectly when I'm making videos, audios, recording, getting on phone calls, interviews, teleseminars, webinars, whatever. Anyway, so a couple of good questions. Mike Jaskey, name, I know he's been on my list a long, long time. Here's my situation. For the past 2 years, I've owned a profitable laundromat. Our customer base is a mix of people from Central American, Pakistani, and Bangladesh. To date, word of mouth works best. Since I've opened, I've tried United States Postal Service door-to-door, Valpak, and door hangers as marketing, none of them with more than a 2% response rate. What do you suggest to communicate with such a diverse customer base? Marketing in English doesn't work. Any suggestions? Greatly appreciated. Thanks, Mike. All right, Mike, a couple of things. First of all, just so you know, a 2% response base is not a bad response. I mean, there are plenty of companies that have lived for 30, 40, 50 years on a 2% response rate. I mean, if you're looking at online, for example, where your click-through rate may be 0.5 or 0.3%, and you got companies making money, don't feel bad. Having said that, I think there's a couple of things you might want to think about. Number one is if marketing in English doesn't work, then you're going to have to get somebody to translate your marketing into, Pakistani. I don't know what they speak in what the language is in Bangladesh, if it's Indian or some form of that, or Central Americans, obviously Spanish. So I would work with that. And what you're going to find is, because I've had to translate copy, or I haven't done it because I can barely speak English clearly, but I've had to work in situations where people try to translate my copy into foreign languages. Some languages it'll work, some of them it's not. So what you're going to need to do is, and you're probably not using really long-form sales letters anyway. In any of these media that you talked about, they're small space. But you're going to have to work with one of your customers or hire somebody locally in the area that can help you translate. The other thing I would do is, one of the things people kind of often overlook is to get more money out of people and to get more people, you have to give them something for it. Oftentimes above and beyond the service you're providing. And in many cases, laundromat is also sort of like a social gathering. So if I were you, I would figure out what these people of different cultures like to do. So for example, I know you don't have a ton of real estate there because you want to put laundry machines wherever you can because that's where your revenue is coming from. But I'm sure you have a snacks counter there or something. I would try to sell or provide something that each of these cultures in their native homeland would enjoy, whether it's a form of coffee, which is pretty simple to make, or baked goods. And you don't have to give these things away. You could sell. I'm sure you have samples, but things like that. Also board games. I remember visiting my friend Christian Godfroy in Portugal many years ago, and he pulls out a board game at night. It was a Portuguese or a Swiss board game because he's originally from Switzerland. And it was really cool. We played the game. I wish I knew the name of it. I don't remember, but it was a lot of fun, and it was good to experience that. And I think you're going to have cross cultures, experiencing other people's games and foods and stuff like that. My point is, when you're more than just a laundromat, then suddenly you take on more value than the average laundromat. People will want to come there, and you'll get a lot more referrals. As you said, word of mouth works best. Well, guess what? When someone says, "Hey, I got to go do my wash," come down and let's have a couple of cups of Turkish coffee, for example, or whatever it is that they're drinking. Then people say, "Yeah, let's go together." So now all of a sudden you got people wanting to go in there, and who knows, you may even develop a secondary stream of income which is equal to or a good percentage of your normal source of income. Now I know you may have issues with you can't sell food, you can't sell this, but you're going to have to figure something mapping out what you can sell there, surely you could provide board games there. Maybe you have a local community newsletter as to, if you're serving the Bangladeshi marketplace, Bangladeshi news, one sheet of paper, and then all the people that you want to market to should get this little one sheet insert, brought to you by Mike Jaski's Laundromat. Come down and blah, blah, blah. Here's an offer. That's a lot more. People will be a lot more receptive to that than a flyer or a door hanger. So I think if you do some of those things and a combination of those things, I think you'll see some pretty positive results. And speak to your, the thing is you always got to speak to your customer base. That's what I always do when I'm working with clients, for example. Most of the time I know the markets I'm working in, but even still, I'll always call them up to find out what their customers have to say because I don't know what's in their head already, So I do some of those things. Good question. Thanks. And let me know how it goes too, by the way. Again, if you want to send in a question, go to kingofcopy.com/askmebaby. Another question from Edwin Soler. Before I go in there, I just want to tell you I put up a new, people had said, and I know it was confusing, the sales information I had for my Maximum Money Club was long and convoluted. We just put up a shortened, much easier, much simpler video. It's easier to digest. You understand what's going on, and you can check that out at kingofcopy.com/MM Club for Maximum Money Club. And you also get a ton of things there for free for checking out my newsletter, basically, that we've been publishing since April 2006. So anyway, next question, as I said, is from Edwin Soler. And Edwin says, what's the best way to establish yourself as an authority? Good question. I think it's a very common question that people are preoccupied with, and it's important. You need to know this stuff. So most people will tell you, and I made some notes here because it's not a straightforward answer. Most people will tell you all you have to do is be a little smarter than your marketplace to be an authority. And that's partially true. But it's not the whole truth, okay? Because there's certain other things you need to have to be recognized as an authority figure. So let's talk about some of those. Yeah, intelligence within a certain area is definitely one of them. I mean, you're not going to look up to somebody that is perceived to be stupider than you. Although you don't have to be a genius. Even on my list, I'm sure that there are plenty of people on my list that every tip I send out isn't like, oh my God, revolutionary news. They're probably familiar with it. But overall, they're getting good stuff. And even if they're not learning something new, they're getting reminded of something new. Oh man, I should try that strategy, or let me do this or that, So you do have to be a little smarter. The other thing is that positions you as a guru is your intensity level and your passion. Typically, the intensity or passion that someone brings to the table is always, it's contagious. And even if you're already an expert in something, for example, if I go to the gym and I work out and I see a guy and, I want to go work out with him and he's pumped up. We're doing chest that day and the guy wants to have a killer chest workout. Guess what? I don't care if he's a great lifter or super strong, whatever. I want to work out with that guy because of his intensity and his passion. And that's something that turns me on. Like I said, it's contagious and it makes you feel good, and you want to be with that person. So intelligence is one thing, intensity and passion, and experience as well. It's really easy and very common nowadays for, especially online, everybody, I got my website, I'm a genius. Okay, that's fine. And, there are people who will be open-minded to that, but let's see, what is that based on? That's why specifically on my blog, for example, I write down that, if someone's new and they come in there, I want them to know I've worked with over 300 clients and to date more than 102 different industries. And you can see that on the website at kingofcopy.com/industries. So, the experience, and, I could say, yeah, I've been doing this since I think March of 2000, but that's not enough. Some people have 1 year of experience. Let's say you got someone who's got 15 years of experience. Some people have 1 year of experience 15 times. Other people have 360 days of experience in a year, and that's the guys you want to get around. So intensity and passion, experience and intelligence. That's what you need to have. Now, how do you, and I think this is really your question, how do you communicate that you're an authority, which is separate from, how do you establish yourself as an authority, okay? You establish yourself as an authority just by putting out information, Okay, you're kind of it's assumed that you're an authority. Now your passion, your experience, and your intelligence will rise and lift and support that or sink that. Okay, but how do you communicate that? And let's talk about a few things. Number one is consistency. One email a month, probably not that much of an authority. 2 emails a month, more. 1 email a week, I have signed up to guys that are very well-respected authorities, and I'm shocked. I've never gotten an email, literally never. And they have a sign-up box. And in my mind, I'm thinking, shit, why do they sign up? Now, maybe they're doing RSS feeds or whatever, and I don't check those, but they shouldn't have allowed me to sign up or asked me if I wanted to sign up. So the consistency of your communication, like it says in my book, intensity and frequency determine a lot of your credibility and your positioning. The variety and the diversity of the things that you're talking about. So, for example, if you are a person that is like an interior designer, and 95% of your conversation revolves around kitchens, you better be a kitchen specialist, because you're not going to have credibility. No one's going to hire you to come out and remodel their deck or their living room if 95% of your conversation is about kitchens. So the breadth and the diversity of what you have to say is super important, and that helps positioning a lot. And the other thing is, it's really important, stick to one topic. Let me explain what I mean by that. I had a guy, one of my clients years ago, that was very unsatisfied with the responsiveness of his list, okay? And my mother-in-law got me this when I turned 50. Keep calm, it's only 50. She's right. He was very concerned about the responsiveness of his list, and no matter what he would put out there, he never got the real response. And I said, look, your problem is, because I was on his list. Usually when I'm working with a client, I try to get on their list and see what they have to say. I said, every week you're pitching a different make money strategy. So why should someone listen to you? Your credibility as the pitcher of this, as the salesman, of the guy putting forth this philosophy of money making, is very low, because last week you had something that was completely different. The week before you had something that was different to that. The week before that you had something different to that. And then guess what? Next week, and it was just different affiliate promos. So that's good if your intention when people come in is, hey, my name is so-and-so, and in this blog, website, whatever, what we do is we evaluate money-making opportunities, but you better evaluate the shit out of them every week and make sure they come in and do your due diligence and explain why, not just, hey, my friend so-and-so has this to offer. So the consistency of your messaging is really important. So for example, if I all of a sudden started, I'm a direct response guy, and I consult people on direct response marketing strategies. Well, if all of a sudden I started coming in talking about branding and graphics, that would screw people up. They'd be like, what the hell? How is he? That's different from saying, hey, I'm not much of a guy for branding, but I met a guy and he's got a pretty good program. And if this is something you want to pursue, here's why you may want to do it, because I've been through the course and it has this, this, and this. In my opinion, direct response marketing is still the way to go. However, he's got a couple of chapters here, especially in these 3 modules, where I think you should look into it if you have this kind of a business. That's totally different. Okay. So let's go just to restate everything. Positioning. You got to be a little smarter than people, a lot more intense, and have a passionate level. And you want to have experience and share that. And experience doesn't always mean paid for experience. If you're a wood carver and you've been carving wood for 8 years and you got an entire office full of beautiful stuff that you put together, the fact that you haven't gotten paid for it doesn't matter. You've got experience at it, and it's clearly showing. To communicate it, you want to be consistent. You want to have a high level of intensity, which again draws on that intensity and passion. And you want to talk about a wide variety and diversity of topics. Oh, most important, I didn't mention, you want to be interesting. Don't be boring. Nobody wants to listen to somebody who's boring. And you want to stick to one area. Don't bounce around. Have one focus, one philosophy, and don't be afraid to talk about it and share about it and be excited about why it's good for you. So good question, Edwin. I appreciate it. Send in more questions. For the next video, go to kingofcopy.com/askmebaby. Again, if you haven't gotten how to make maximum money with minimum customers, go to kingofcopy.com/max and check out the new offer we have at to get my 30-day cash flow surge program free at kingofcopy.com/MM Club. Thanks for your time. Thanks for listening. If you have any comments, let me know about them. I'm out, and I'll talk to you next time. See ya.